My fellow Americans.
Take the red pill.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
The disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
All we have built, all we have worked for, would be destroyed.
There is nothing the political establishment will not do.
And this nation will not be fully free until all its citizens are free.
Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action,
These criminals cannot be rewarded.
so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction.
There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
They're coming after you, and I'm just standing in their way. Here I am.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
The cost of freedom is always high.
Those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
This is a crusade! This is a holy war against the deep state!
We never wanted to be right, but yet things are all adding up to the firestorm.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there telling me I've got to beware. It's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds, getting so much resistance from behind. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Singing songs and carrying signs, mostly say hooray for our side. Think it's time we stop, baby. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia strikes deep into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. You step out of line, the man come and take you away. It's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop, baby, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose. Live with you Monday through Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is where we bring you that unfolding global conspiracy. And that was For What It's Worth by Buffalo Springfield, covered by the Del McCoury Band and friends. Please go subscribe to the McCoury channel that is on YouTube. You can find that at McCoury, McCoury channel, CHNNEL. And you can find that version and tons of other great content with the Del McCoury Band. And so we like sponsoring a lot of different types of music out here. We get nothing for it, just good listening, great music. And that song is iconic of the times, is it not? Man, battle lines are being drawn, are they not? You know, sometimes like you almost see tears coming in my eyes because you can see what's happening in the world. You can see it unfolding. And as much as we've talked about this the last 4 years, 5 years, it's kind of surreal that it's actually happening. It's kind of crazy that it's actually happening, people. You know, my brother Jason and I, in November of 2020, after the election was over, and there was not a lot of hope within a lot of MAGA. We said, hey, look, we gotta look at this whole thing differently. We gotta change our perspective on a lot of things that maybe we weren't winning at that point in time. Maybe the future really does prove the past. Maybe that we have to go through these growth pains as a nation. We have to go through 4 years of Joe Biden to see the light. Not us, because we were already awakened in 2017, 2010, and 2012, and 2001. But the rest of the world, the rest of the country. And after talking about with Jason the Firestorm event and how we saw social and cultural destabilization, political destabilization was going to occur, how George Soros attorney generals are going to infiltrate and try to increase the crime by releasing prisoners and not prosecuting violent crimes, how governors were going to allot this to happen, how state legislators were going to start moving more towards a democratic socialist type of environment where taxes were going to skyrocket, where inflation was going to be unhinged, where illegal immigration was going to flood into our country. We saw it coming. We talked about it. We warned about it for the longest time. And we said, hey, it all comes down to this moment. It all comes down to this one point, and that is the firestorm. It comes down to that one point, that precipice moment, where there's so much chaos within the system that both sides become vulnerable. And after 4 years of Biden-Harris, many Americans have awakened to the truth. Many people have come to the same conclusion that you and I have. Over the last 4 years, we've watched as things that were considered conspiracies by the mainstream social construct that banned you and me from Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all of social media, that deleted my channels 3 damn times, were all true. But the difference between a conspiracy and truth is simply about a year and a half. That all these things begin to come about and people begin to see the truth. And why did that happen? Because we took over the domain of information. Because you know what? Look at me. Look at you. We are the news now. We are the mainstream media now. I don't think there is anybody out there that disagrees with that. We are the mainstream media. We are the ones that are bringing the truth out of the darkness into the light. And I'll tell you, it's been one hell of a ride. But see, our journey doesn't end here on November 5th. It doesn't end on January 20th, when the inauguration happens. It begins right here. Because this is not a one-day battle. This is not a 4-year or 5-year battle. This is going to be a decades-long journey to take back the United States of America. This is going to be the next decade of our lives, unraveling all the crime and corruption and sedition and conspiracy that has gone on within this country. And you, the American people, me, you, the American people, and us here at the Red Pill Project, we're going to be a critical part of that exposure. It's happening, people. It's truly happening. Yesterday, I got word from a friend of mine in D.C. He says, it's a rumor, so I haven't confirmed this yet. It's a really good source. He says, I got a rumor that something is about to drop about a congressman or senator that will ruin their career prior to the election. Anthony Weiner type of stuff. Don't know who it is. I didn't get that much information. I just got told that, hey, look, something potentially is going to be coming out about a congressman or a senator in the next couple days that is horrific. So if we see that, I think that could have an effect on a lot of things. We are seeing the unraveling right now of just how sick and corrupt and complicit these people really are. Now, I joined Alpha Warrior last night, and we talked about secrets. We talked about the red folder. We talked about the binder. This is something I've been talking about for a while now. Actually, since November of 2020, that Trump is going to release this information, that the objective of Trump after the 2020 election was to purchase a social media company, gather a critical mass of over 100 million people, and then, prior to the next election, release it all. Let it all out. And so Game Tech and myself, over the last few years, we've been talking about what the FBI was looking for at Mar-a-Lago. And this is the Crossfire Hurricane binder. Also, what we call the red folder, the criminal dirt on people. We heard that 6 months ago, the Mossad handed Speaker Johnson a folder full of dirt on various different members of Congress and Senate. What kind of dirt? What could we potentially see coming out this week? Listen to General Flynn about a year ago talking.
We have the House of Representatives right now is totally, completely broken, and they're totally owned by the corporate lobbyists, and frankly by the globalists who own many of these people because they've been compromised by some of these what they call Codell trips overseas, where these members of both the House and the Senate get compromised by sleeping with children, and they compromise. And these are real things. These are very real things. They get them caught up in the world of big bucks, big money.
Well, you heard it right there from General Trump, or General Flynn. General Trump. So people have come to a long realization over the last 4 years. And this last election that we're seeing right now, Trump and Vance and everybody associated with the campaign have came out and said, vote early. And I think that this was multi-folded. There's a reason why they wanted us to vote early. Number one is you get to see the amount of corruption. If the machines get used, if the ballot scanners get used, you begin to see which ones are faulty, which ones are going to fail. And a lot of this has been uncovered already. But then you begin to see everything else. You begin to see them get scared. You begin to see the panic within the eyes of the Democrats when over 53 million people have already voted. And Donald Trump is leading almost every single swing state. Check this out. I'm going to bring this up here. Donald Trump expected to win Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Michigan. In Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is leading early voting 74.6% to 25%. Kamala in Georgia, 86%. And in Michigan, 68%. This new development comes after Donald Trump held a rally at Madison Square Garden, had over 27,000 people inside, and 75,000 people couldn't get in. The road to the election is first-party data company specializing in opinion polling on the issues that matter the most. And we are the media, people. This is what it's about. And so here's the key. What is the keystone? Well, I can tell you one thing. There's a keystone state, which is Pennsylvania. Battle for the flip. Key states Trump and Kamala must win. Pennsylvania has emerged as the election kingmaker with a 30% chance of deciding the presidency, the highest among all states. Trump's path to victory requires maintaining an 89.6% probability if he wins the state, while Harris' chances jump to 88.5% with Pennsylvania victory. Michigan and North Carolina are tied as the second most crucial states, 15% each, followed by Georgia and Wisconsin, 10% each. The voter power index shows that Pennsylvania voters have 7 times more influence than those in average states. Trump now leads in electoral college probability at 55%, despite trailing in popular vote projections, where Kamala leads 50.3% to 48.6%. Victory will likely hinge on flipping key Obama-Biden counties in Rust Belt states. Wisconsin voters carry 4.9 times the national average influence, making Milwaukee and Green Bay turn out potentially decisive in the final outcome. Guys, it's not that close. You have to damn well know it's not that close. Too big to rig. There are too many people coming out to vote for them to rig it. The influx of early votes right now has overwhelmed them to what they don't know what to do, to where they're shutting down the lines because they don't want people to vote anymore. I think we all know that Donald Trump is going to come out victorious in this. We're seeing various factions within the global regiments align with Donald Trump, from those within the investor and angel investor and hedge fund circuits to Silicon Valley bigwigs and some of the wealthiest people on the planet to various power figures around the world. They're all aligning with Donald Trump. Bill Ackman, a lifelong Democrat, very, very outspoken person against Donald Trump. Listen to what he has to say here.
Where you can, well, you need neutral spaces in media.
Bill's an optimist, by the way.
Yeah. Neutral spaces in media where those where you can counteract I don't even want to use the word misinformation, because that itself has problems. Look, I don't want to sit here and just be an advertisement for X, but what's interesting, someone writes a profile of me on in some media form, I can, within an hour of that article coming out, I can, very specifically fact check, rebut, address the issue, as could obviously any candidate for office. Prior to X being sort of this neutral platform, you send the Times a beg them for a correction, right? And in a few weeks on quote unquote page 43 in a place no one would read, the correction would appear. And I think the more the public has lost confidence in kind of conventional media, the more they're going to look to empirical voices in podcasting and kind of citizen journalism on X. And I do think that's a powerful counterpoint. The most powerful moment for many people, actually one of them for me, is I truly believed that Trump had said that the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists were very fine people, were among the very fine people who were protesting. And it takes about 2 minutes to actually watch what he said to realize that he said precisely the opposite, that he condemned. He said, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists when he's talking about very fine people. And that's the moment when you realize, oh my God, I really have been misled by the media. You look at the 60 Minutes excerpting that was done of, Kamala, and you realize how much you can be manipulated, particularly by taped and excerpted media. So I really, if I'm trying to get to the truth, I want to hear the voice of the candidate, untaped, unscripted, without the teleprompter.
Boom. Absolute boom right there. Bill Ackman, a Democrat, just basically said what? That X has changed the battlefield of information. That anybody who is put out there into the world can easily go contest and put out facts for the whole world to see and read. Then he says what? Citizen journalism is becoming the new norm. is becoming the new news in media. And then he says, I learned that I can't trust the mainstream media. He's leaving the Democratic Party. Why? Because of all the propaganda. He realized that they're behind the disinformation, that the lies and deception against Donald Trump. He said, I believed what they were telling me. And it took me 2 minutes to double check. And I found out that they were lying. And he is voting for Donald Trump. Maybe trying to get an SEC chair position. Doesn't matter. He's voting for Donald Trump. And you got to ask yourself, why are some of the biggest names in the Silicon Valley, CEOs who are associated with the World Economic Forum, supporting Donald Trump? Sean McGuire, a partner at Sequoia Capital, one of the largest angel and venture capitalists in the world. He says, lawfare is one of the top issues I'm voting on this year. He understands that the lawfare being propagated against Donald Trump means that they're next. It means that if you don't fall in line with the agenda, if you don't fall in line with climate change and carbon taxes and DEI and ESG, if you don't fall in line with the decimation of the United States of America towards a Chinese commie-fascist government, then you're next in line. That lawfare will be utilized against you. Linda Yarcino, the CEO of Twitter, World Economic Forum freaking affiliated, states here, the FTC commissioners clearly targeted our company for political reasons. To say this is troubling is an understatement. We've worked in good faith for years with the FTC, and they thought they had been as well. We need answers immediately. This becomes as Judiciary Republicans release report on how the Biden-Kamala Harris FTC continues to harass Elon Musk and go after X. People are waking up. And see, the biggest fear to the globalists, to the deep state, to the evil that lurks in this world is you, awake, informed, armed with information, armed with truth. So let me ask you this. What happens? And this is where future proves the past. This is where all that Q stuff starts to come back. When do they expend ammunition? What happens when they lose control? Guys, we know their playbook. They utilize the mainstream media, politicians, and big influencers around the world to set a narrative 3, 6, 12 months out. And they slowly propagate towards that narrative as if that is the actual reality that is happening. The thing is it's a false, disillusioned reality of which they're producing. But the people who consume that information truly believe that that is reality. And see, after all said and done, they utilize that false reality as justification for all the things that happened. Victoria Nuland, the mastermind behind the Ukrainian Maidan massacre in 2014 and the U.S. coup of Yanukovych in Ukraine, who implemented the U.S. CIA inside of Ukraine, pissing off Russia, allowing the annex of Crimea. This woman also is the one who did the Nord Stream pipeline. She is deep state through and through. She joined Rachel Maddow, and I want you to listen to what they talk about here.
Which Russia has tried to interfere to try to get Trump into the White House. How do you assess the magnitude and the type of interference they're attempting this year compared to what they've done in his previous 2 elections?
Well, as you said earlier, Rachel, he's at it again. This time he's not even trying to hide his hand, and he has far more sophisticated tools. You know, his AI is better, so he can make these fake videos. He has done things like spend $10 million trying to buy American influencers and get them parroting his lines and not even know it's happening. But he's also got a brand new, very, very powerful tool, which is Elon Musk and X. You know, in 2020, the social media companies worked hard with the U.S. government to try to do content moderation to try to catch this stuff as it was happening. But this time we have Elon Musk talking directly to the Kremlin and ensuring that every time the Russians put out something like this, it gets 5 million views on X before anybody can catch it. So it's quite dangerous. Although I do think the American electorate has gotten more sophisticated and more savvy about this stuff.
Wow, guys. Is it almost as if they are setting something up, setting up another January 6th type of moment? Kind of interesting what she was just saying there, isn't it? Now, earlier this week, I said, no, not earlier this week, last week, I said, wouldn't it be interesting if something big dropped next week pertaining to Act Blue? And you just heard what Victoria Nuland said, that Russia is all for Donald Trump and Elon's working with the Kremlin and Russia propaganda is ruling. Russia. What? Wait, what? Oh, my bad. Sorry. China, Russia, and Iran funneled illegal funds into Democrat campaigns via Act Blue. Boom. Mic drop. House investigation reveals that Act Blue allowed illegal contributions from China, Russia, and Iran to secretly influence Democratic campaigns, using unwitting Americans as straw donors to cover foreign sources. Chairman Brian Stell says, our investigation has indicated that these foreign actors may be exploiting existing U.S. donors by making straw donations without the individuals on your platforms. Without your platform's knowledge. For years, Act Blue collected billions with bare minimum security. The reason they had bare minimum security is so that this could actually happen. Anybody who took that money, any fucking candidate, knowingly or unknowingly, took that money is complicit in election interference and taking foreign money from foreign intelligence agencies, and they are ineligible to be fucking on the ballots. 100%. So I want you to see the dichotomy of what is happening here. One hand, you have Rachel Maddow and Victoria Nuland going, Russia, and Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson. Russia is helping them. And on the real side, Russia is funding the Democrats. Iran is funding the Democrats. Through Act Blue, this is what they're afraid of. So, since they're afraid of it, what does this mean? This is where they expend ammunition. This is where they come out with incredibly dangerous rhetoric against their political opponents.
Including, yes, Puerto Rico. I'd like to take that guy for a swim out there. Anyway.
Joe Biden saying, I'd like to take that guy for a swim out there, referring to Donald Trump and indicating that he'd like to drown him. Now, China, Russia, and Iran funding Democrats. Well, we knew this in 2020 because China was behind the malicious attacks that were covered up by CISA to steal the election, along with Venezuela. Now, isn't it interesting that China has been funding the majority of the illegal immigration into our country, and they're sending Northern Africans and Middle Easterns into Venezuela, corroborating with Venezuela. We find out that Dominion's software, the original software OS that operates on those systems, is owned by Venezuela. Congressional investigations have confirmed that Governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, dated a Chinese spy from the Communist Party. Well, he was active duty military over there. This guy is heavily influenced by China. We know the Biden administration is heavily influenced by China. And so here we go. They know the jig is up. So here comes the rhetoric.
An armed mob.
Listen to this.
Look, we know who Donald Trump is. He is the person who stood at this very spot nearly 4 years ago and sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people in a free and fair election.
So what she just said there is 100% bullshit. Firstly, the Capitol had already been overtaken 45 minutes before Donald Trump had ended his speech. Donald Trump never once incited violence or a mob or directed anybody to go anywhere. Secondly, if we wanted an insurrection, if we wanted to seize the Capitol building, if we wanted to go over there and contest an election that was obviously stolen, bitch, we would have came armed and you would have lost. I'm just going to state it for the fucking record, okay? That wasn't an insurrection. You don't know what the fucking insurrection is. Trust me, if it was, we would have been armed to the fucking teeth. There would have been a million armed people there, and it would have been a lot worse than you could ever imagine. But that's not what it was. That was pissed off Americans not being heard. That was pissed off Americans whose voice was being ignored. That was pissed off Americans who just watched Donald Trump get cheated out of an election. A coup happened in their country, and their representatives in Congress and Senate absolutely do shit about it. And when they went out there to protest and let their voices be heard, they were ignored. And then police helped to incite it. FBI helped to incite it with various different placed agitators within the crowd, including Antifa. So don't give me that, bitch. Let's go back to Rachel Maddow. Now, the last few days we've heard Donald Trump held a Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. He is Hitler. Which is Nazi means National Socialism. Now we got Rachel Maddow.
Two very quick clips. The first one is from Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden last night. And the second one is from the infamous pro-Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden in February 1939.
Americans sleeping on their own feces on a bench in Central Park. But the illegals, they get whatever they want, don't they? 5-star hotels, cash, probably get Yankee Dodger tickets tomorrow night.
Great floods of tears for a few 100,000 job-taking so-called poor Jewish refugees who incidentally in general have more of this world's goods than you or I will ever possess.
Floods of tears for a few 100,000 job-taking so-called poor Jewish refugees who incidentally in general have more of this world's goods than you or I will ever possess. That was from the 1939 rally. That speaker was Gerhard Kunz, who was a German-American Bund leader who would ultimately be indicted for both espionage and sedition, leading the crowd to denounce these so-called refugees, these so-called poor people who get so much better treatment than real Americans. The argument doesn't change at all. You know, if you don't want to be compared to those people in history, don't steal their lines. Don't say you admire them. You know, if you don't want to be called a fascist, don't convert a normal governing political party into a one-man cult of personality and then say all elections are rigged and the country used to be great, but now it's been humiliated and brought low because of an enemy within, and we're going to have...
So because somebody's words sound similar to some words that were said in the past, probably thousands upon thousands of times, she wants to make the comparison. And she scoffs at the idea that illegal immigrants' lives are better in America than the homeless and the homeless veterans and the impoverished. Well, they are, Rachel Maddow. They are better. They are getting $2,500 a month for housing. They are getting 5-star hotels. They are getting $10,000 on debit cards loaded up for food stamps. They are getting trips to any state that they want to go to. But notice how she transitions. She puts the buzzwords in. Nazi rallies. Donald Trump's a Nazi. But then he's a fascist. Wait, is he a Nazi or is he a fascist? Is he a National Socialist or is he a fascist? I'm confused here. Which one is he, Rachel? Is he a Nazi or a fascist? I mean, come on. See, they're just buzzwords, and they throw the buzzwords out because that's what gets people fired up emotionally. See, in the realm of cause and effect, there are 2 points of which you can go out there and try to interact, have a relationship with the external world. In the realm of effect, if you are continuously reacting to your environment, then you're going to be emotionally reactive to everything that happens. That's the people that watch Rachel Maddow. That's the lefty friends that you have that tell you they hate Trump, that scoff at you because you're voting for Trump, that can't understand anywhere in the world why you would vote for Trump. And when you say, well, let's have a conversation about it, they get all violent. They get angry. They yell. They scream. And when they say, well, Donald Trump's a rapist, and you say, who did he rape? Well, E. Jean Carroll. No, he didn't. Where's the evidence of that? Just one person's testimony? Well, the court convicted him. Okay, a court set up in New York that changed the laws to make sure that they could go after him. Well, he said that all illegal immigrants, migrants coming over the border are rapists. No, that's not what he said. Let's pull up the clip. And the moment you challenge it, they become emotionally involved. They become emotionally destabilized because it's almost like trauma. That's how psychological warfare operates. See, what Rachel Maddow right there is doing is she's using words of trauma to emotionally engage the left in rage, in fear, in panic. Now, why are we seeing an exponential increase in the rhetoric? See, guys, the early voting has started to uncover a lot of problems. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold of Colorado is an election rigging fraud. Colorado voting machines' passwords were leaked online by the Democrat Secretary of State. Specifically, over 600 passwords for machines in 63 of the state's 64 counties were posted for anyone to see. BIOS passwords are highly confidential, allowing broad access for knowledgeable users to fundamentally manipulate systems and data and to remove any trace of doing so. Due to the sensitivity surrounding BIOS passwords, Colorado Election Regulation 8 CCR 1505-1 Rule 20.5.2 C11 requires limited access to select few at the Colorado Department of State. Neither county clerks nor commissioners have access to these files. Somebody signed an affidavit swearing under the penalty of perjury that they downloaded the file from Jenna Griswold's website and discovered the hidden tab that simply clicking unhide. Which means that if bad actors wanted to go out there and change the data in Colorado, they could, just like they did in 2018, just like they did in 2020. Colorado has long since been lost, in my opinion. And yep, and Tina Peters. Tina Peters is going to serve 9 years in jail for trying to uncover the corruption of Jenna Griswold in Colorado and what they did in the 2020 election. Police in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, are physically blocking people from voting. We just got word that the Donald Trump campaign is actually filing a lawsuit with the Supreme Court of Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, suing Bucks County for blocking voters.
It's 2:41, and they are ending the line.
$2:41 p.m. and they are ending the line. Why? Let me ask you this. They had till 5 p.m. Today was the last day of early voting in Pennsylvania. They had till 5 p.m. and they were closing the line at 2:41 p.m. And then they were removing people who tried to vote. I'm just going to throw this out here because this is what they want. But if they keep this shit up and they do steal the elections, this is probably what they're going to get. It was called the McKinn County War, also known as the Battle of Athens, was a rebellion led by citizens in Athens and Etowah, Tennessee, in the United States of America, against the local government in August 1946. Citizens, including World War II veterans, accused the local officials of predatory policy, police brutality, political corruption, and voter intimidation. The E.H. Crump political machine based in Memphis controlled much of Tennessee, extended to Min County with the introduction of Paul Cantrell as a Democratic candidate for sheriff. Cantrell, who came from a wealthy and influential family in nearby Etowah, tied his campaign closely to the popularity of the Roosevelt administration. Cantrell rode FDR's coattails to victory over his Republican opponent in what became to be known as the vote grab of 1936, which delivered McKinn County to Tennessee's Crump machine. Paul Cantrell was reelected sheriff in 1938 and 1940 elections and was elected to the state senate in 1942 and 1944, while his former deputy, Pat Mansfield, a transplanted Georgian, was elected sheriff those years. A state law enacted in 1941 reduced local political opposition to Crump's officials by reducing the number of voting precincts from 23 to 12 and reducing the number of justices of the peace from 14 to 7, including Cantrell's men. The sheriff and his deputies were paid under a fee system whereby they received money from every person they booked, incarcerated, and released. Where we heard that before. Because of this fee system, there was extensive fee grabbing from tourists and travelers. Buses passing through the county were often pulled over, and the passengers were randomly ticketed for drunkenness, regardless of their intoxication or lack thereof. Between 1936 and 1946, these fees amounted to about $300,000. Cantrell engaged in election fraud, both by intimidating voters who voted against him and by allowing ineligible voters to vote. Where have we heard that before? I'll say that one again. Cantrell engaged in election fraud by both intimidating voters who voted against him, lawfare, and allowing ineligible voters to vote. The U.S. Department of Justice had investigated allegations of electoral fraud in McKinn County in 1940, 1942, and 1944, but had not taken action. Voter fraud and vote control perpetuated McKinn County's political problems. Manipulation of the poll tax and vote counting were the primary methods. But it was common for dead voters' votes to be counted in McKinn County elections. The political problems were further entrenched by economic corruption of political figures who enabled gambling, bootlegging, and other illegal activities. Most of McKinn County's young men were off fighting World War II, allowing appointment of some ex-convicts as deputies. These deputies furthered the political machine's goals and exerted control over the citizens to the local county. While the machine controlled law enforcement, it also controlled the extended to the newspaper and schools. When asked if the local newspaper, the Daily Post Athenian, supported the GI's veteran Bill White replied, "No, they didn't help none of us." White elaborated, Mansfield had complete control of everything, schools and everything else. You couldn't even get hired as a school teacher without their okay or any other job. Does all this sound familiar? During World War II, 2 servicemen on leave were shot and killed by Cantrell supporters. The servicemen of McKinn County heard of what was going on and were anxious to return home and do something about it. According to the contemporaneous article by Theodore H. White in Harper's Magazine, one veteran, Ralph Dugan, who had served in the Pacific and the Navy, became a leading lawyer post-war, thought a lot more of McKinn County than he did of the Japs. If democracy was good enough to put me out against the Germans and the Japs, it was good enough for McKinn County too. The scene was ripe for confrontation when McKinn County's GIs were demobilized. When they arrived home and deputies targeted their returning GIs, one reported a lot of boys getting discharges were getting the mustering out pay, while deputies running around 4 to 5 times, grabbing up every GI they could find and trying to get the money off of them. They were fee grabbers. This wasn't a kickback. In the August 1946 election, Paul Cantrell ran again for sheriff while Pat Mansfield ran for state senate seat. Stephen Byram, a local historian, speculates that the reason for this switch was an attempt to spread to the gaff. Bill White, meanwhile, claims the reason for the swap was because they thought Cantrell stood a better chance running against the GIs. The GIs were most hostile towards Sheriff Mansfield and his deputies rather than Cantrell, whose period as a sheriff had been relatively benign. McKinn County had around 3,000 returning military veterans, constituting almost 10% of the county's population. Some of the returning veterans resolved to challenge Cantrell's political control by fielding their own nonpartisan candidates and working for fraud-free elections. A meeting was called in May 1946. Veteran ID was required for admission. A nonpartisan slate of candidates was selected. Veteran Bill White describes the veterans' motivation. There were several beer joints and honky-tonks around Athens. We were pretty wild. We started having trouble with the law enforcement at the time because they started making a habit of picking up the GIs and finding them heavily for almost anything. They were kind of making a racket out of it. So what ends up happening? Well, this is where it gets interesting if you have never heard this story before. On August 1st, 1946, the polls opened. Normally, there were about 15 patrolmen on duty at the precincts. About 200 armed deputies were on patrol for the election, many of them from other counties and states. An Etowah GI poll watcher requested a ballot box to be open and certified as empty. Although he was allowed by law to make the request, he was arrested and taken to jail. In Athens, Walter Ellis protested irregularities in the election, was also arrested and charged with what was explained to him as a federal offense. Around 3 p.m., CM Windy Wise, a patrolman, prevented an elderly African-American farmer, Tom Gillespie, from casting his ballot at the Athens Waterworks polling place. When Gillespie and the GI poll watcher objected, Wise struck Gillespie with brass knuckles, which caused Gillespie to drop his ballot and run from the deputy. Wise then pulled his pistol and shot Gillespie in the back. Later, Wise was the only person to face charges from the events on August 1st to 2nd, 1946, and was sentenced to 3 years in prison, but only served 1 day before being paroled. GIs gathered in front of the L.L. Schaefer store, which was used as an office by campaign manager Jim Buttram. Buttram had telegraphed Governor McCord in Nashville and U.S. Attorney General Tom Clark asking for help in ensuring a lawful election, but received no response. When the group learned that Sheriff Mansfield had sent armed guards to all polling places, they convened at the Ensign-K garage where they decided to arm themselves. Sheriff Mansfield arrived at the waterworks and ordered the poll closed. In the commotion that followed, Wise and Carl Neal, the deputies inside the waterworks, took 2 poll watchers, Charles Scott and Ed Vestal, captive. By one account, Scott and Vestal jumped through the glass window and fled to the safety of the crowd, while Wise followed behind. Another account, there was a guns-drawn confrontation between Jim Buttram, who was accompanied by Scott's father, and Sheriff Mansfield. A third account argues that when Neil Esminger from the Daily Post and Athenian showed up to get a vote count, his arrival was a distraction that allowed Scott and Vestal to break through the door to escape. In any case, the escape was followed by gunfire, which sent the crowd diving for cover. Someone in the crowd yelled, "Let's go get our guns," causing the crowd to head to the Ensign-K garage. Deputy Chief Bo Dunn took the 2 deputies and the ballot box to the jail. 2 other deputies were dispatched to arrest Scott and Vestal. These deputies were disarmed and detained by the GIs, as were a set of reinforcements. GI advisor, Republican election commissioner, and Republican Party chairman Otto Kennedy asked Bill White what he was going to do. White said, "I don't know, Otto. We might just kill them." According to White, Kennedy grew alarmed and announced, "Oh, Lord, oh, Lord, oh, Lord, no, I'm not having nothing to do with this. Me and my brother and son-in-laws are leaving here." Lon Selver at American Heritage Magazine says Kennedy left vowing to have no part in murder. The crowd and most GIs left. The remaining GIs took the 7 deputies turned hostage to the woods 10 miles from Athens, stripped them, and let them free after they beat them. So, estimates of the number of veterans besieging the jail vary from several hundred to as high as 2,000. This comes later on during that week. Bill White had at least 60 under his command. White split his group, and Buck Landers taking up positions at the bank overlooking the jail, while White took the rest to the post office. Just as the estimates of people involved vary widely, accounts of how the Battle of Athens began and its course of events diverge. Either way, what happened here, people, is armed GIs and citizens massing in the 2000s went to stop a corrupt election. The election was being stolen. They armed themselves. They fought back against the police, the sheriff. They fought back against the state senate. Eventually, the National Guard came and broke it up, and it found that, yes, they were rigging elections. Yes, they were cheating in the elections. And the rightful people were put in place. See, the reason for the rhetoric, The reason for the narrative setting is because they are going to attempt to steal the House of Representatives. They are going to attempt to steal this election in one way, shape, or form or another. And when they do, and when they get caught, and an army of pissed off Americans form up, they have an army of pissed off Democrats who are completely under the influence of psychological warfare and emotional destabilization. We could also see potential false flags that arise in the next couple days. Dark MAGA post from Dan Scavino the other day talked about 10 days of darkness. It talked about the primary fallout occurring on 11/3 and 11/4. Today, we had a suspect barricade himself in the Atlanta's Four Seasons Hotel while shooting at people. I've heard that before. And here's the one interesting thing that's got me concerned. Kamala Harris giving a speech behind bulletproof glass. To this date, I've heard no threats on Kamala Harris's life. I don't think there are any. She's too stupid to win. I don't think anybody cares. Now, that brings up a good point. She can't win. What would the deep state do to Kamala to get her out of the way? To put in a candidate they believe probably could win? To bring a point of a nation in mourning? To jump up the hype of the Democrats? Do you think that they would assassinate Kamala Harris, the vice president? Do you think that the deep state or a foreign government would assassinate Kamala Harris a few days before the election? I'm just saying. And then blame it on a conservative, blame it on MAGA? Anything is possible these days, people. Keep that in mind. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Capitol Police hold a casualty evacuation exercise at the Capitol with multiple helicopters last night. This is an annual exercise. It happens all the time. Trump told us to make it too big to rig, and we are on our way to making that happen as long as everybody goes out there and votes Trump. But we are in danger of losing the House of Representatives with approximately 20 House seats literally too close. Guys, I called this years ago. They are not coming for the presidency. They are coming for the House of Representatives. If they control the House, they control January 6th. If they control January 6th, they can stop Donald Trump or attempt to stop Donald Trump. The Biden-Harris regime has installed riot-proof fencing near the White House around the ellipse ahead of Kamala Harris's closing rally. We just showed you that. Last night, the U.S. military conducted unusual readiness and continuity of government exercises that involved a dozen helicopters landing in the Capitol and more than 100 heavily armed troops patrolling the grounds. D.C. is going to be locked down before January 6th and January 20th. Understand that. Nobody is going to get in or out. Representative Jamie Raskin, let the people vote for Trump if they want. We're not going to certify the election anyways. As in, they've already won the House. So he may be elected, but we are not going to let him be inaugurated. The Dem said reps not wanting to certify the election was criminal. Raskin should be arrested if he does not certify President Trump's win. Do you agree? I agree. 100%. So the Dems are now utilizing the projection of January 6th as their only methodology to stop Donald Trump. If they win the House of Representatives, you better watch out. But Donald Trump has a plan. And I think he's got a really good plan. He's got the goods on these people. He's got the goods on these people. Donald Trump just said today, Trump says he will seize assets of criminal gangs and drug cartels to aid families victimized by migrant crime. Do you remember the executive order? Blocking the property of persons involved in serious human rights abuse or corruption, December 21st, 2017. The executive order now makes a lot more sense. That anybody associated, affiliated, knowingly in these criminal acts, like NGOs, NPOs, like the Democrats that just did for the last 4 years, who allowed Donald Trump was talking about the 380,000 children that disappeared under the Biden administration. Guess what? He said the Biden administration is complicit in human trafficking. Executive order. right there. That they now become criminally negligent. So Donald Trump has a plan. Kamala said the truth today. Donald Trump has an enemies list and he plans to prosecute the people. Donald Trump has told us his priorities for his second term. He has an enemies list of the people he intends to prosecute. Damn right. The people that went after him, the people that utilized lawfare, the people that utilized the DOJ, politicized it, and weaponized it against him. The people from 2016 to 2020 that impeded his first term as president of the United States. He said it before, I should get another term because what did they do? They impeded him. How about this? Check this shit out. Whistleblower James Comey had FBI honeypot spies infiltrate Trump's 2016 campaign. Guys, do you know what that's called? That's called fucking treason. That's illegal. You can't do that. Yeah, he's going to prosecute these people. How is he going to prosecute them? Well, one way is under the Aliens and Seditions Act of 1798 that we just talked about yesterday. So we have to look at this in a level of precedent. If their movements of setting this narrative right now of social and cultural destabilization, of political destabilization, if they cannot steal the election, if it really is too big to rig, and we win the House, and we win the Senate, and we win the presidency, what's their next move? Creating a global crisis to where they get to seize power once and for all, to bring about the War Powers Act, to bring about PEDS, to secure the government through the process of FEMA's coup and cog, continuity of government, and they get to seize power and make sure the inauguration doesn't happen. How does that come about? Russia, people. Why do you think the narrative is being aligned around Russia and Iran? Russia today test nukes successfully launched its nuclear missiles that could allegedly reach Los Angeles in 30 minutes, Paris in 10 minutes. Now, the United States is already in Ukraine. Yes, they are. They are already in Russia. This is an act of war, by the way. In Bryansk, Russia, Russian special forces tracked, ambushed, and wiped out a team of Western saboteurs working under the Ukrainian flag who infiltrated the border. They are U.S. and Canadian. Tattoos are clearly show they are current or ex-U.S. special forces, especially well equipped. These aren't former special forces. These are active duty U.S. soldiers in Russia running special operations like we've been saying for the last 4 years of what they were doing. And see, when all of that happens, the next part they do is global economic collapse. It's the black swan event. They bring about global war. This gives them the global crisis to seize power and then global economic collapse. Because why? Because when you don't have a house, when you don't have food, when you don't have transportation, when there is no gas to get you anywhere, when work is shut down because of a global crisis or a global war, when food shelves are empty, when your house is being taken back by the banks, you're going to beg your government. You're going to beg and ask them for help. Give us what you gave the illegal immigrants. That's how they get people. That's how this is going to go if they lose the election. Remember, they will scorch this earth before they ever give up power, people. They will not, in any way, shape, or form, give up power. They will only give up power if they are prosecuted and brought to justice, which means that, buckle up, shit's about to get real, people. We are 1 week away from the 2024 presidential election. On Tuesday night next week, Alpha Warrior and myself will simulcast the election, probably be about 3 or 4 hours of simulcasting where we're going to bring in a few different guests to talk. And we're going to be watching the election results as they come out. If shit goes like 2020, we're going to be drinking heavily. If shit goes like 2016, we'll probably be celebratory drinking heavily. Either way, we're going to have a good time. So I hope you guys join us next week. So put that on your calendar. Popcorn ready. That's right. If you guys want to help support us, I do daily news briefs now. And so these are videoed daily news briefs. They're posted on our locals channel. They're posted on our social red pill, as well as our Substack. You can find them on those channels. Specifically, Substack is probably one of the best because you get tons more other content. Social red pill right behind that. Red Pill Substack is redpillproject.substack.com. Make sure you are a subscriber over there. So it's not a free subscriber, but a paid subscriber, and you can get into that. Don't forget, and everything is linked up over at redpills.tv. You can find that. If you're interested in Social Red Pill, another way to collaborate, to help support us, it's as low as $5 a month. They have other subscription prices there, socialredpill.com. Don't forget to visit our sponsors, redpills.tv/mushroom. Get your immune modulating mushrooms. It's getting to be the end of the month. So if you order now, you're going to have that delivery here in the next week, which is good. Once the next week starts over, they have to resupply. So redpills.tv/mushroom. Guys, much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night. I'm going to be back with you tomorrow night. We'll see you then.
That's impossible. Only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.